As a mom, do you ever feel like your to-do list never gets any shorter at the end of the day? Parenting can be overwhelming in the best of circumstances.
In those moments, consider what kind of parent God wants you to be. Today on The Difference, we welcome New York Times bestselling author and one of our favorite voices speaking on the topic of parenting, marriage, and so much more, none other than Dr. Kevin Lehmann.
So hold on, moms and dads, God is in control. You're watching The Difference.
Welcome to The Difference. Today, our dear friend, Dr. Kevin Lehmann, is once again joining us, and we're discussing the power of parenting. Dr. Lehmann, you know, the old statement, the more things change, the more they stay the same. And you've spent a career in dealing with family and dealing with parent-children relationships, husband and wife relationships. How similar are things in the world that we live in today as they were 100 years ago?
Well, there are some similarities for sure, but it all gets down to relationships. It gets down to our ability to communicate respectfully to each other. You know, technology and the warp speed that life seems to go, one of my dear friends and I were talking about this. We knew no one in our school, public school, whose parents were divorced.
Yeah, that's true.
Didn't know anybody. And now, you know, kids today, so many of them come out of single-parent homes, divorce. Trust me, all that breaking down in relationships, which we used to take for granted, you go back 100 years, you know, all that, that's all gone now. We've robbed the stability of relationships.
Well, and you know, you bring up a point that I get to have in discussion. People say, let's get back to traditional family values. Those family values for me and for you would probably be pretty common, but for other people, they're very different.
Right.
You know, so when you're talking about traditional family values, it's probably a better conversation to have in the context of relationship and the balance that needs to be present there, because you and I grew up and you know, I mean, there's 4 decades between us. However, in that period of time, we were very similar in the environment of children are seen but not heard. Now, children, they're either the center of everyone's attention or you're neglecting them. And in some ways, that pendulum has swung too far the other way.
Oh, yeah. Kids shorter than a yardstick are in full control of their parents and their grandparents.
And the whole room. If you know, a parent who thinks their child is Mr. Wonderful walks in and I don't give them as much attention as they do, that child goes to war with me, trying to persuade me that I should think that they're just as important as everybody else does.
Yeah, it's crazy. You know, my basic advice to parents is slow down, try to keep things simple. I can tell you in the Lehman family, we have our church, we have our family. I'm not a joiner. I've been asked to be on more committees than you can shake a stick at, and boards. I don't do it. You won't find me at some cocktail party sitting there talking to people that I have very little interest or commonality with. That's not who I am. And I think for me, the litmus test was, I used to tell people, well, there's my 5 kids, ask any of them. Do they ever feel like dad's career came before them? I give you story after story where I broke my tail to get to that performance or that thing because I always wanted the kids to know I was there. And I've had parents in today's world of technology say, oh, well, I had a girlfriend. She videotaped her performance. You know, a lady, you know what?
They don't want FaceTime.
You weren't there.
They want you time.
Your kid knew that you weren't in that audience.
Yeah.
And so, again, don't sell yourself short, parents. We call this show The Difference. You want to make a difference in your kid's life? Then pony up and be the parent you need to be.
Yeah.
And that means the time you say, no, I'm not doing that.
It's okay.
Here are the parameters.
You call that vitamin N.
Vitamin N is okay. So what about the extracurricular activities? Like we've got 4 kids, and there's times that I'm running all over, but we started to take what you said is 1 activity per semester per child.
Yeah,
and even with that, we're at 4 activities.
Again, I guess it sounds like blasphemy, but activities are not good for children. I've got a chapter in one of my books. I wish I could remember what book it was, but it says, help, I'm a cabbie and my minivan isn't even yellow.
Yeah, and in some ways we've made the measure of social standing, the achievements that they have on the field, and so the child feels like unless I'm in an activity, I'm irrelevant,
Well, and busyness has become sort of a badge of honor.
But then we medicate kids for being attention deficit disorder. How does those two things balance?
Hello, that's why I say keep it simple. Give them carrots. They could chew on a carrot. we over-medicate our whole society.
Yeah.
Adults take more antidepressant medication than ever before. And yet suicides and, divorce, and look at all the maladies of life. They're all sky-high numbers. Why? Because we've gone the opposite way. Keep it simple.
Well, for Kendal and I, our normal, it's busy, and there's a lot going on. But when we get to dinner time, all of our kids are around our table and we're there.
Yeah, perfect.
And it may not be every night, but we have to schedule it a couple times a week.
It's something we protect and defend, faithfully.
I get it.
To the point that when one of our kids is not there, if we got 3 of the 4, or, my oldest daughter's off with the school thing, or, my son's doing something over here, it's noticeable that there's a piece of this puzzle missing. As opposed to what I see in a lot of cases where, families sit down and go, this is the first time we've all been together in 6 months, as opposed, and one, to me, I have this little window to invest myself as a person who's going to imprint the lives and develop the character of his kids, and then after that, whatever I've put in is going to come out for better or for worse.
Yeah, I'll tell you a quick story. I live in Western New York State in the summertime. It's my hideaway from people. And our 11-year-old daughter had to go back to school, and we had a daughter who was married. So the deal was, you're going to fly back to Tucson from Buffalo, New York. You're going to be with and she was all gung-ho for that. But so the time came, and I flew with her to Tucson. I'm talking to the flight attendant, and I asked her if she's doing a turn. Well, that's flight attendant language for you going to go back to Chicago.
Yeah.
And she said, yeah, I'll be on your flight. She said, you'll be on our flight? What do you mean? I'm just taking my daughter here to Tucson. She's going to live with our married daughter for 2 weeks till we come back. And she said, well, Dr. Lehmann, do you know we have this wonderful program where for $50, we make sure your child gets from point A to point B and blah, blah, blah. And I looked at her, I said, yeah, I know, ma'am. But quite frankly, that's not your job, it's mine. And you know what? My kids remember things like that.
Yeah.
The dad went, they're our kids. We're the psychological blankie for our kids.
Yeah.
And the little things like that. Kids remember my wife, who'd always on their lunch put a little cartoon. And the kids said all the kids in school were jealous because we always had a little cartoon.
My 9-year-old, she goes through the photo albums of my 17-year-old, and she wants to know where are my printed pictures. Yeah. And I'm like, all your pictures are on an iPad,
on a cell phone.
Those days are gone, kid.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, she grew up in Polaroid era.
Yeah, watch the difference. We talked about that.
And it's because they want to know that they matter.
Right.
And the only way that you can show them that they matter is by giving them yourself.
Yeah.
When we come back with Dr. Lehmann, we're going to talk about a home field advantage that you have. And if you don't deploy it, it will be to your detriment. But if you use it properly, it'll benefit your marriage, it'll benefit your children, and it will make your life a lot better way to live.
Israel is the only nation on earth created by a sovereign act of God. This is the land where Jesus was born and where he will return to rule for 1,000 years.
This year commemorates the 75th anniversary of Israel's statehood. As Christians, it is imperative that we celebrate with our Jewish brethren and that we recognize their absolute title to the Holy Land today and forever.
Please send your best possible gift in support of Israel, and you'll receive our Hagee Ministries and Israel keychain, along with our Why Christians Should Support Israel booklet. for your gift of $200 or more, we'll also include a gold mezuzah with the Star of David and a framed Hebrew home blessing.
In a world filled with chaos and anti-Semitism, let us be the voice echoing God's eternal love.
Receive these gifts today. Call the number on your screen or go to jhm.org/support.
Welcome back to The Difference. We're continuing our conversation with Dr. Kevin Lehmann. Dr. Lehmann, you were a baseball player. You know, anybody who's ever played competitive sports understands the term home field advantage. What is that when it comes to family?
One of the things that Sandy Lehman and I did right is we provided the home court advantage for our kids. Home was that sanctuary where they could fail, and we loved them anyway.
Yeah.
And the orange juice toppled. The kids didn't get a thrashing or berating. We got a rag. We taught them in life, you make mistakes, you move forward. We showed them that God was real in how we live our lives, in how we pray, and all those simple things in life. Because keep in mind that kids are taking emotional, spiritual notes, behavioral notes on how your wife treats you and you treat your bride and all that. It's sucking it in like sponges every day. Yeah. So it's not outsourcing your children. You know, today if you're in business, it might be a real good idea to outsource this or that. But in America today, we outsource our children.
Yeah.
And what you're doing by outsourcing your children is you're diluting the probability of you giving your indelible imprint on your children. Why? Because these other strangers have more impact and spend more time with your kids than you do.
Yeah. And, you know, as we were talking about children being the center of the universe, you talk about vitamin E and vitamin N because praise, when it's given to anyone other than God, is misappropriated.
It is. It is. It absolutely is. And people don't get that. Well, I thought it's good to praise children. Well, like you say, praise God, all others pay cash. But you know what? When you praise a child, you're saying, I hold you in high esteem because you did this. It's a qualified, but encouragement is I love you just the way you are. And you know what? You think about it. When God looks at the three of us, okay, He looks at us as pretty imperfect people.
He knows all of them.
How many parents right now, or grandparents, have pictures on the refrigerator door that your kids or your grandchildren drew? Hands up. Let me look at you. I see all over the country the hands are going up. Okay. Now, are those pictures any good? Good. Dr. Lehman, I'd say they're downright precious. That's my little grandson, Timothy. He drew that
it's a masterpiece.
That airplane for his Grammy. Honey, I talk with Timothy, and that's a dinosaur. Well, it's still pretty. What I'm saying is, I think God looks at you and I as imperfect beings.
Correct.
You know, and you need to look at your kids and understand that there's times they're not going to measure up. Yeah. And if you're too over the top and you do too much pushing, they're going to dig your little heels in. They're going to go the opposite way. That's the position you need to have as a parent. You need open arms. Come to me slowly. I'm not going to, you know.
Yeah.
I'm going to be a good listener. I'm going to teach kids empathy. Things happen in the news and discuss those things. Honey, I'd love to know your opinion about that at dinner time. Let your 11-year-old start to spout off what their opinion is about X, Y, or Z, and listen to them. Don't be the first to correct them because their thinking isn't right, or they're never going to talk to you again.
Yeah. Make sure that they feel like their idea is valuable, and then help them improve that idea with good information instead of just, you know, childish thinking. And, you know, I look at it in the context of build up or beat up.
Yeah.
And sometimes our lives get so competitive that what we want to do is beat everybody up. I want to be better than you. I want to do more than you. I want to achieve more than you. And this kind of competition comes into family.
So who's winning your marriage? If somebody's winning your marriage, you both lose because marriage isn't a competitive sport. Who's winning the battle between your 13-year-old who now all of a sudden got a little spark in him going the wrong way? If you get in that power struggle with that 13-year-old, you lose. I'm going to tell you right now. I'm putting my money on your 13-year-old. Why? Because he has less to lose than you do.
Yeah, and they'll push farther than you ever wanted to push.
Exactly.
You know, and so when you have the mindset of beat, everybody loses. But when you have the mindset of build, you only continue to improve.
Yeah.
You know, I would suggest, I mean, I know this is true in my life. I'm 44.
Maybe 45.
Yeah, I'm 44 years old and am still developing a great relationship with my father.
Yeah.
Your children are adults and they're
Isn't that
still
true? Yeah.
developing a great relationship with you because they're continuing to be built and build relationship with you.
You know, the reward is, I'm telling you, as you get older, you're going to find this out. It is with our 5 kids. They love hanging out with old mom and dad, and there's nothing better.
Well, when we come back, you're going to hear more from Dr. Lehmann about good godly counsel and advice and what the Lord himself expects us to do as godly parents. Don't go away. You're watching The Difference.
I'm so grateful that I chose differently. I'm so happy that I chose you. I get to see you become the person God intended you to be. Thank you, Hagee Ministry Legacy Partners.
There has never been a better time to share the love of Christ with a mother and a child than right now. When you partner with Hagee Ministries, your legacy impacts lives and transforms a nation. Call today or go to jhm.org/partner.
Welcome back to The Difference. We're here with Dr. Kevin Lehmann talking on parenting. And I know as a pastor's wife, one of the prayer requests that I get is, I'm a single mother. How do I parent my kids?
Well, in all probability, if you're a single mother, you parent your kids out of guilt. And let me say this about guilt. It's the propellant for most of the bad decisions you're going to make as a mom, period. Mm-hmm. So you can't run on guilt. If you're a mom, you can't be dad. You just need to be a consistent mom whose word is spoken true. Your yes is yes, your no is no. There's never any indecision in the kid's mind about what mom feels about this or that. So my question to every single parent on the Sea of Life, you're the captain. There's no co-captain. You're at the wheel. You're at the helm, and you're on the Sea of Life. And here's my question. Where's your port of call? Do you know where you're going? Okay, so what's your purpose? You know, what's your the kids are going to glean all those things out of how you live your life. If you start feeling extra sorry for your kid because you went through the divorce or you never married or whatever that guilt is that you're beating yourself up every day, you got to ask God for clear guidance for you to suck it up and be the mommy you need to be to those kids, because the stakes are really high for single moms, because those kids that grow up in single parent homes, quite frankly, are at a disadvantage. People don't want to hear that, but they are. But being a consistent mom and a person of speaking the truth and love to your kids and having those guidelines and having positive expectations, my encouragement to single moms is you can knock it out of the park. You can be a great mom and create great kids.
And would you say that the same is true for single dads? Because, I mean, as we talk about the modern world, 25 years ago, and it would probably still be true today, the majority are single moms.
Oh, yeah. 25 years ago, just a few.
Yeah, more and more.
Now there's more.
There's single dads and single moms. Is it the same in that regard?
And they have the principles are still in line, but it's really skewed way the other way for the single mom. But again, for that dad, you need to be part of those kids' lives.
Yeah.
Okay? And however you have to do it, they have to feel like they are a priority in your life. If they feel that, you're giving them the self-esteem and confidence that kid knows. And keep in mind that dad, mom, you are the authority. You're
Correct.
You're God. I mean, your relationship with your kids, okay, if it's not a good one, it's an angry one, it's combative, how's that kid ever going to come to an understanding of who the loving father is?
Well, and I think, in the context of a single mom, there's times where she needs to stop nurturing and start leading. And in times of a single dad, it's almost the opposite. He's got to stop leading and start nurturing.
Yeah.
Because that's the missing balance.
That's a good point.
That the kids are searching for,
Exactly.
If all mom does is nurture, then the kid chooses his own direction. If all dad does is lead, he never listens.
Well, I shared this with you, but I'll share it for our audience. In our church that I go to in Tucson, Arizona, which is a wonderful church called Zion City, on Mother's Day, we bless the single moms and dads. What does that mean? It means we line up in front of them, they stay standing, and we come and we empty our wallets. What do? We give them money. The parents, single parents, they're the stepchild in the church.
Yeah.
They're the threat to the other married women. Oh, how could you say such a thing, Doctor? I just said it. You know, they're at the bottom of the manure pile.
Because whenever the marriages are falling apart, they wind up in your office. So,
Listen, preach it, brother.
yeah, you get to see.
I've been there.
You get to see the other side of the beast.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's very important that you understand that they're at, as you mentioned, the disadvantage. You know, they're running a race carrying a big weight behind them instead of having the freedom to run as everybody else does. And they don't have the partnership. They don't have the complement. They don't have somebody that they get to face the challenges with. They have to do it all alone.
Right. And so it's nice in churches where they have couples who really mentor the single moms, and many of them came out of very dysfunctional homes themselves. They don't know what's normal. I mean, loving on other people and having people who really give a rip. They don't care what you know until they know you care. Once they know you care, now, whatever you say, guess what? They're going to listen to. So parents, we're talking about parenting now. Do your kids really feel special?
Well, and I think that that's an important aspect in raising grateful children. You know, I talk to parents all the time, like, I don't think my kids appreciate me. I don't think my kids are grateful.
Stop giving them things, parents. Hello.
Yeah.
You know, the kids today aren't grateful for anything.
Well, they're not grateful for the material things, but they're grateful for that recognition that you just mentioned. They're grateful for that conversation. They're grateful for that one-on-one, how are you in this moment of your lifetime where they feel like, hey, mom and dad go beyond the material into what matters.
Yeah. The words, hey, you're getting it. Hey, great job. Those are words of encouragement. I love to tell this story. It's one of my classic ones I love to share about praise versus encouragement. But the kid brings home 5 A's on the report card. And mom is so excited. Oh, 5 A's, I can't believe this. Oh, I can't wait till your dad gets home. He is going to be so thrilled. This is just the best. I'm calling Grandma and Aunt Martha right now. Oh my goodness, you're the best kid in the whole world. Here's $20. Well, that's praise. And most of us grew up in a praising, rewarding society. But using vitamin E, what I'd love to see that parent say to the kid is, wow, 5 A's. Honey, it looks like all that hard work you put in this semester really paid off. Fist bump, congratulations. That's got to feel good inside. And you just save yourself $20 on top of that. But the takeaway is mom or dad recognizes the hard work that I did. You want a kid to, self-generate and move forward and motivate? There it is. They'll do it. They want to please you. Sure. So parents everywhere, listen to what I'm saying. Your kids want to please you. Let them please you. Let them give back to the family. Then you slip them the vitamin E, and you're keeping them on a positive game plan, a track for life.
Well, and by doing so, you equip them to take those same principles, and guess what? Your children are going to parent your grandchildren.
That's right.
And you want them to be able to do that well. So you want to be able to instill in them the things that you think are important when their turn comes.
You know, books like Have a New Kid by Friday, Making Children Mine Without Losing Yours, some of my parent books, grandparents buy them by the gross. And they're handing them out to their children.
You need to catch up on this.
Because they're shaking their head at how their kids are raising their grandchildren. You need to teach kids to be grateful. You know, are you a giver? All my kids are givers. Do you think it's coincidence that Sandy Lehman and Kevin Lehmann are givers? No, they grew up with it.
Yeah.
Do they empathize with other people? They do. And teaching your kid to be empathetic, everybody doesn't live in a nice place. Everybody doesn't live in a nice apartment. You have to give thanks to who? God, from whom all blessings flow, as the song says. So acknowledging who God is in your life as a parent, that we're all accountable. That's what God asks us to do, to be a good parent. Not a perfect parent, Perfectionism is slow suicide. Forget perfection. Jesus was the perfect one. The rest of us fall short. So don't be afraid to say, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Would you forgive me? My daughter one morning over breakfast, I'll never forget it, broke down in tears. I'd run over her feelings big time. And she said, you know what you ought to do? And show you how stupid I am, Matt and Kendal. I said, what? She said, you ought to read your own book.
Gotcha.
I'm coming home, Elizabeth. That was it. I mean, she was right. And that same kid in a book, Making Children Mine Without Losing Yours, I took a little note, the actual note that she wrote when she was 7 years old. Happy Father's Day, but it was missing an R. And it said, even when you discipline me, I love you the same. Holly. That was my oldest daughter. Even when you discipline me, I love you the same. So even at 7, she saw that discipline was a loving discipline. That's the key. You want to lovingly discipline your kid. There's times you have to pull the rug out, let the little buzzard tumble. There's times you take him by the beak, put him outside, close the door, lock the door. I don't know. I mean, you need action-oriented discipline. Sometimes you need to say to kids who are, going after you, hey, I'm done with you two. Yeah. I'm very unhappy. What's going on? Turn your back, walk away. Turn your back and walk away? Why? Watch what happens.
They got to figure it out.
They'll follow you because they don't like the fact that mom or dad is unhappy. Yeah. So don't be afraid. So remember this, an unhappy child is a healthy child. There's times your son or daughter has to be unhappy. Why? Well, for various reasons, but let them be unhappy. Yeah. Your job is not to raise happy children. Steve Covey, the late Steve Covey said, start with the end in mind. So the question is, are we raising children or raising adults? We're actually raising adults.
Better be.
Yeah.
So when they're 18, they know how to do life and say no to things that aren't good for them and make
Or when
good
they're
decisions.
77, they're not acting like they're 7.
Yeah, well, I've been guilty of that.
Somebody wants to get information about all of the wonderful material you've shared. What's the best way for them to do that?
Probably birthorderguide.com. There's 60-some Lehman books out there. 5 of them are really good. One of them's almost to that point now, but they're supposed to make you laugh and learn at the same time. If you're a business person, read The Way of the Shepherd. It's a wonderful book. If you're married, read sheet music. I mean, that is a wonderful book. Churches won't marry you. A lot of churches, they won't even marry you until you've read sheet music and passed the test.
Well, as far as the test, I hope that there's no final exam.
Well, I can tell you, by chapter 5, if you know what I mean, Matt, you're ready reading that book.
I want to thank Dr. Kevin for joining us once again on The Difference, and I want to thank you for choosing to be a part of today's program. I believe that God has a powerful opportunity for your family if you are willing to do what He asks you to do, to be the parent that He's called you to be and change the world through your children tomorrow. God bless you, and thank you for watching The Difference.